parents will come to me and I'll say, what do you really want? They're like, I don't want them to have this. Well, that's not an option, right? This kid is wired this way. This kid has autism. This kid has ADHD. They may be able to learn to manage it so well you won't even notice it, but it's not going away, actually. This is what you're dealing with. If you're dealing with diabetes, whatever it is, this is where you are. Given where you are, how do you want to grow and change from here? And we can make extraordinary strides when we focus on the next step and the next step and the next step while still holding that larger vision.
Is trying to fix your children actually making things worse? On today's episode of That's a Great Point, we have special guest, Master Certified Coach, Elaine Taylor Klaus. Elaine is co-founder of Impact ADHD, an organization dedicated to helping those parents raising complex neurodiverse children. Elaine found out early in her parenting journey that growing herself helped turn what was a chaotic and overwhelming life into a life of opportunity and possibility. Elaine now helps countless other parents do the same in their lives using her groundbreaking work. In this episode, we cover whole picture parenting, growers and status quoers, what it takes to truly help your kids be successful, the cost of trying to fix others, neurodiverse-informed coaching, how hard it is to reach out for help when you know you need it, and much more. To find out more about Elaine and her work, check out impactparents.com, link in the show description. And as always, if you find our content helpful, please share it with somebody you love. Thank you so much for playing along. Enjoy. Welcome to That's a Great Point, the attitude adjustment for your soul, where co-hosts Elena Doran, Michelle Albers, and Lee Smart discuss deep topics around a life well lived. Let's start the show. We are live.
We are live, recorded.
Good to hear.
So, all right now is whenever we have to make sure that we go full on professional face, and we got to make sure we present to the world properly, and
what is properly, Lee?
Put our performance mask on.
Yeah. I'm not masking today.
Right? Like clench everything and contract right away.
What are we talking about today?
Well, welcome into our circus there, Elaine. Yeah. I figure we'll talk about the weather, sports teams.
You just lost me.
Me too.
Whatever suits your fancy.
Hear that.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about? How about
I know.
How about we start here, Elaine?
Michelle's got a theme. What do you want to talk about, Michelle?
Oh, yeah.
I do. I haven't watched an entire podcast or thing, but I did enough research to know that you are really into parenting. And from everything that I've seen, your whole picture parenting, which is glorious, because I find most of the time parenting is very pigeonholed into either fear of their kid getting the same kind of childhood they got, or fear of them being judged, or fear, pick your thing. But like everything I saw was whole picture parenting. And I really want to drop into that. And I want to know about your summit.
I got love both of those. Whole picture parenting, nobody's ever used that term before, and I love it. Thank you for that. That is a gift. Because I have never heard the term, and I think it is absolutely on target.
I used to teach preschool, and so whole picture is so important, but I don't know, it's just how I describe it.
Love it. I love it. It is. So the secret sauce to what we do is, when I became a coach, I became a better parent. And it wasn't rocket science. And it was actually something we could teach to other parents. And this is back in the days when the internet was kind of a new thing, and there wasn't a lot of support out there for parents. There was a lot of support out there for kids, of what I call complex kids, kids with ADD, anxiety, autism, depression, learning disabilities. But there was just nothing to support the parents, unless you happened to be able to drive across town to the local support group once a month. There was just nothing. And so when Diane and I met each other, actually at an international conference on ADHD, we realized that we both had this experience, this parallel experience. But she was a neurotypical mom, and I'm a neurodiverse mom. And we both had this experience that coaching made this dramatic difference in our relationship with our kids and with our families. Mm-hmm. And so we started off, we were going to do a workshop together because we're both in the Atlanta area. And within a year, we had gotten an Innovative Program Award, and we had started a global website. And, it was so early in the internet that it was at that intersection of accessibility of the internet, affordability of, mostly free, and effectiveness of coaching came together. And we just started supporting parents, teaching them, coaching them, training them with this, what we call a coach approach. What became clear to us way later, and by that I mean like last year, was that we innovated a new modality in coaching called neuro-informed coaching. And that's the piece that I never understood. People would ask all these years what made it different, and the therapists were always like, well, that's not different, that's what we do. But the truth is that we created a coaching model, it's a classic coaching model that blends neurodiversity into it, so that it's a neuro-informed model that incorporates executive function, it incorporates what we understand about motivation and language processing. And that, Michelle, I think is the whole picture piece, right? That's and I'm telling you, I'm just learning this. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm just understanding what we've been doing because I'm taking this kind of meta lens to try to figure out how do I help it be sustainable after I'm not doing this anymore, right? Because it's too important for it to stop, because it's profoundly effective and transformational for families. When you take this coach approach and you blend in an understanding of how our brains work, fundamentally, no matter what your brain is, whether it's neurotypical, neurodiverse, neurodivergent, whatever you call it, when we look at what underlies how people think and feel and act, and you blend that with a coaching modality, it's pretty extraordinary, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that adds the layers, the layers of understanding, or at least expertise and wisdom in knowing all the parts so that you can help all the parts.
And this just in, there's a lot of information out there, right? What this model and coaching does is it allows us to take information, turn it into insight, so that we can integrate it into ourselves and implement it in our lives. And that's the piece. We often, we take information and we try to use it before we've integrated it, right? And I mean, if you think about that whole, conscious incompetence and conscious competence, that whole framework, this is another way of looking at it, I think. But it's a way to actually do that, to move from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence.
Yeah.
Right.
And another thing I heard in that is it's not just logical. Like, we start at logical. That's how we build the foundation, is to understand how it works. But then at some point you got to bring it into the heart and soul. At some point you got to drop it in and integrate it throughout, because I find, and I'm a different way of coaching and how I show up in the world, but I find that the logical is a great way to avoid a whole bunch of stuff.
Yes. The tyranny of the how.
Yeah.
Right. We could get totally stuck in, well, how are you going to do that? Well, and I was just on another I was just doing another interview for an executive function podcast or summit. And what we were talking about, this kind of new model or theory that I've been working on and developing, is that we tend to start with structure. And then we make the structure the goal. But the structure is never the goal. The structure is supposed to support us in achieving the goal. So we've got to get clear on what the goal is, what the change is that we want, what we're looking for, what's important to us about it. We've got to decide we really want to go for that change before we apply the logic and the structure. But we have this tendency to start with the logic, but it actually works at cross purposes. It does much better if we bring it in at the end.
So you mentioned changing from what to what?
Whatever you want, right? I mean, that's the beauty of coaching, is you can do macro things, you can do micro things, you can change logistics and details in your life, you can change mindset, you can change relationships. The truth is, when we change, things are going to change around us. We may not always like the way they change around us. We do have to, there are other agencies in the world. But when we do our work and we create a shift in ourselves, it creates change. And when we do that with intention, then we create change. But as I say, sometimes it's not always going to get what we want. Like when I first started coaching, my husband and I are both coaches. And so what we started noticing in the first few years was that it began to change relationships, and it began to change certain dynamics. And there was a kind of culling of people in our lives that were no longer as comfortable with us or we with them, with our new way of being in the world. And so some would say, but you lost friends. Well, and I gained this whole new world of magic and connection. And so when I changed, some people could roll with that and be with that, and some couldn't. And that's not a right or wrong. It's just as we change, the world changes around us.
That's beautiful. I call that the ripple effect.
Yeah. And I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Right. I talk about that a lot as well, because I think we have this like belief that if we don't keep all the people in our life, somehow we're now a bad person, or somehow we're the problem. And it's like, what if it's just no longer a good fit, and that's okay? What if evolving and transformation that includes a whole lot of change is actually how we become us, like our self, our real self?
Yeah.
That takes courage and a lot of other things too, compassion.
A lot of self-love.
Yeah.
And as you were saying that, I remember very specifically, so my kids are young adults now. My middle kid is 28. And I remember having a conversation with her when she was, 10, 12, something like that, about this very issue, that there are going to be some people who are in your lives for the long haul. And there are some people who are going to come in for a while, and then you may not know them again, or you may come back to them later. Or some people who the next time you see them 10 years from now, you'll feel like you just saw them yesterday. And because one of the things I used to talk to my kids about was that you three, these are the longest relationships you're going to have in your life. And so we did a lot of conscious effort to foster a sense. We called them friblings or friendsters, or, we did a lot to try to foster a sense of connection amongst our kids, because we really wanted them to be there for each other, to want to be there for each other, right? You can't force it. You can't make them. But we held that as a value, and we kind of invited them to that value over the years. But part of the point was that some people won't be here forever in your life, and that's okay, right? But it depends on what your values are around it. I think some people see it as a badge of honor or success. I have a coach I used to work with who would talk about, just because a marriage ends in divorce doesn't mean it was a failed marriage. right? Some marriages, stand the test of time. I'm looking at a couple of my parents' family friend group who are 70 years married, right? Some couples do that, and some couples, stop after 15, 20 years and have a really good relationship with each other and co-parent beautifully, and they've moved on to other things and other relationships. And that doesn't make their marriage a failure. That means it ran its course, right?
Well, and that understanding of what does it look like when something has run its course is an incredible skill to have and to hone. And what you're talking about in our conversation here, there's a saying, people are in your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And that's what keeps popping up. And goodbyes can be hard because change is uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, I think change is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Yeah. But, I think, Leah, you and I have talked about this before. I have a theory that there are actually only two kinds of people, that there are growers and there are status quoers. And there's some people who come into this world and into this life, and what they're looking for is to kind of create their stability and their place and their way of being. And they have their routines and they have their structure and they have their people. And I'm not judging that at all. And they have a really good, beautiful life that feels safe and comfortable and loving for them. And then there are others of us, and I would bet every one of us on this call is a grower, who are constantly seeking more, different, like what else? How can I improve? And our lives are constantly changing and growing because we have this value around, whatever it is. What am I doing here? I don't know about you. I want to leave the world a better place. I've wanted to make the world a better place since I was 16 years old. That's why I'm here. And so I think we have to respect that the people who aren't growers, and again, I really mean that with no judgment, that's who they are. In fact, when I was talking about, there were some certain friends that fell out of our lives. I have one set of friends who fell out of my life for about 10, 15 years. And I would say very much so that I'm a grower and they're very status quoers, and we just went very different directions. And what's interesting is now, as we're moving into our senior years, or whatever you want to call it, we're coming back together, literally 15 years later. Why? I don't know. They were ready, So, yeah, I think people have different relationships with change. And I think the people who are the most uncomfortable are the ones who want change and don't know how to execute it, make it happen, don't feel empowered to make it happen. I think that can be a really uncomfortable place for people where, I do a lot of work, you were asking at the summit, with parents of young adults and professionals who are supporting young adults. And I think young adults are really struggling right now in a big way. And in part because there's this expectation that they grow up and create a stable life, right? This is the generation that isn't going to do better than their parents, that can't afford to buy a house, that, fill in the blank. And I'm not sure this generation necessarily wants to create that stable life. I think they're kind of exploring their way through this changing world, and this world is changing fast. And there's this conflict between what they think is expected of them, and maybe even what we think is expected of them, and the reality of where they are. And those who either would like stability and don't know how to achieve it, or feel like the wrong thing is being asked of them, I think are really struggling right now.
That's what I wonder about some of the status quoers, as you put it. Is that where they want to be, or is that what they're clinging to because it's scary to look down, up, across? So might as well stay because that's what I know.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably it. Some I would say yes. And some like, I remember when we started going through coach training and coaching school and all of that, you sort of watched which relationships made it and which didn't, because somebody was growing in the couple and some was not, right? That, I watched it happen in my leadership tribe with several people. So I do think it depends on the individual. There was something else you said that I wanted to respond to, but I think I lost it. Damn.
Okay.
Grower, status quo-er. I don't remember what it is. It'll come back.
I've already had that happen to me about 15 times so far in this conversation. So we're in good company. There's a few things you said, though, that, if we were all the same, we wouldn't need each other. So that's such a beautiful piece. And I guess the piece about the status quoers or the growers is like, did you choose that life? I know for me, being a grower, I realized that a lot of my desire to grow and to learn came from a feeling of not enough, of insecurity, of don't have enough, or I'm not enough to be able to meet the whatever difficulties I might face. Someone, if you want to speak a little bit about healthy growth versus I'm not enough and I need to be different.
It's a great question. I wonder if anybody really grows fully from a place of full competence. And so, like, I think everybody's plagued with some level of gremlin. There's a parenting person I used to work with, a woman named Shelley Lefko, and she kind of went through and identified all of the internal messages that kids tend to internalize at a very young age, no matter how good a parent we are. My theory is parenting is kind of damage control in that respect. But I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm like, everybody internalizes some message. Our human brains are more attached towards the negative than the positive. We're more likely to go that direction and see it. I mean, there's a lot of brain science that can explain it, but I think everybody struggles with what you're talking about, Lee. The question is, what do we choose to do about it? How resilient are we in the process? And so there was some research that was done years ago, really amazing longitudinal study about resilience. And they looked at a group of kids who were, disenfranchised, low-income kids, and they followed them for, I think, 40 years. And what they discovered was the number one indicator of their success was not intelligence, but it was the resilience. And the resilience came if there was one adult in their lives who had believed in them. One adult who held a vision for them. And it could be a teacher, a coach, a parent, an aunt, didn't matter who it was. If there was some sense that somebody saw their capacity, that was the linchpin in their capacity to step into their full expression or to be successful, whatever that is, however they defined it. But I think about that a lot, particularly as somebody who does a lot of work around parenting and a lot of work helping professionals who are supporting families, right? So I work with a lot of therapists and doctors, and that what we focus so much on the expectation, and where I think we miss out is that we don't focus enough on the capacity, the vision, seeing these kids in their capacity. I mean, I used to say to my kids, you're going to be an amazing adult. We just got to get you there. Because getting there is hard, right? It's a gauntlet. Okay, so here's another little bit of research. I was at a conference in the European Positive Psychology Congress last summer in 2024, and there was a guy there named Andreas Kraft, who is one of the leading world researchers. He's a futurist, and he's one of the leading world researchers on hope. And he did a keynote. He was amazing, and I spent some time talking to him. I mean, I've actually since interviewed him because he was really extraordinary. And one of the things he said, that from the result of all of this global research, and one of the only countries they didn't explore was the United States. So it was research from all over the world. One of the things he said is the number one thing that parents can do, and he wasn't doing research about parenting, be very clear. His takeaway from the research is that parents can make a difference by holding hope for their kids' future. That when parents believe the kids have a future and believe in hope, the kids are more likely to move towards that. And when parents feel like the world is coming at them, when kids feel like the world is coming at them, that's more likely to stall things out. So I think the most important thing we can do for kids, the most important thing we adults can do for ourselves when we do want to pull ourselves out of a difficult place is to hold the vision for what we're trying to achieve. It may not look like that when we get there, but if we don't actually see where we want to go, if we don't actually believe it's possible, if we don't hold the capacity for change or possibility, it's going to be a whole lot harder to get there or to get it, to even move in that direction than if we, I think a lot of people, I know what I was going to say to what you were saying, Elena. I think part of what's happening in the world with this rise of fascism all over the world is a lot of people who are status quoers who cannot be with the rapid pace of change right now in the last 50 to 100 years. And so we're seeing a lot of people going, I can't keep up, it's too fast. And so they're grasping to what was because they don't have a belief that we can create the vision of what could be. They don't have hope for the future. And all of these fascist regimes are tapping into the fear and crushing the hope, because the hope is actually what allows progress to happen, what allows them to move forward. I get it's very philosophical, but somehow that ties back into what you were asking, Lee. I think that there's, even when we struggle with our own self-concept, we can hold both true. We can hold, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, and I have capacity. I want to be better. I want to be my full expression of myself. And it's not necessarily a negative motivator. That was a lot. What comes up?
Well, what comes up is the word faith over and over. And you're talking about if we don't actually believe that we can get there, whatever that there is for each of us, if we don't embody an embodiment, that's the other word that comes up for me. If we don't embody, if we don't elevate into that frequency and operate from that place of I'm not there today, but I will be there. One, I know where I want to be. I have an idea. Yeah. And two, I believe it's possible. And three, what would it be like if we operated from the place of I will be there. I'm just on my way.
Yeah.
Or I'm already there. There's a huge an embodiment component.
Do you remember there was this years ago? There was this research that was done about two Olympic teams. I think they were divers or gymnastics or something, and they researched the way they prepared for the competition. I don't have the details. I'm not, but one of them spent half their time physically practicing and the other half in this visualization kind of thing. They saw themselves on that gold platform, and the other was only doing the physical. And the ones who visualized it won. And, you can't control for all variables and all outcomes, but, that tells you something about the power of our mind and the power of belief and hope and faith or whatever it is, like what it takes to achieve the ability to, I use the term source positive, right? To materialize. I know for a fact that my world changed, my family's world changed when I started believing and trusting that the universe had my back on some level. When I learned to trust that it could be possible, whatever it was. When I started to step out of that scarcity mindset, everything shifted. Like, it's extraordinary to me how much shifted. And, we are all energy, right? We're all connected on so many levels. And to think that it's only the logical, back to Michelle's point, or what we do, is to kind of miss what we're here for in the first place.
I love that. How many of us, and we all work with people around this in very different capacities, different lenses, different focus. But how many people walk around over-indexing on the cognitive and under-indexing on the rest of them, on the body wisdom, on whether it's a system of beliefs, a point up here, whatever that is for you, right? The heart, the soul, the gut instinct, and the system of beliefs. There's so much wisdom there. There's so much support available to us there that we don't tap because we go on data and facts and data. And how many, like business leaders, that's the realm I work in, like talk about, well, we're a very data-driven company. We're very data-driven. Like, well, data is Play-Doh, it's clay, and you can make it anything you want. So what are you really driven by? And if data is all, clinging on to something, and if that's all you're clinging to, then you're missing so much information that could make for a wiser decision, that could make you more proactive and make you more mission driven and mission aligned.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much research around this now, and yet there's a lot of fear and response to it because, I think we've got a lot of years left before that old world, data driven. Again, data is a structure to support a larger goal. The goal isn't the data.
Right.
But to be able to trust, I had somebody once who said to me, I don't trust the way your brain works. Because I'm not a particularly data-driven person. Like, I get the research, but I don't remember the details, but I know how to integrate it. I'm pretty strategic. I can use it, but I'm not all about it. And for some people, that's really scary.
It can be very unnerving, right? Because it sounds like your approach is more holistic.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you say? Picture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holistic approach of this feels like, here's the data, but here's a feeling around the data. Here's a sense around the data, which my bias is that is a more complete approach.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, any politician can tell us that data can be manipulated and it can be used to tell the story we're choosing to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing a great job of that right now.
When are they not doing a great job?
So I just had a thought that's a little bit sideways. I want to see if you want to go here. You mentioned how often we point at the negative. Our brain is trained to look for the negative. What do you think the cost is of trying to fix somebody or treating people like they're broken and always trying to fix whatever problems that you see? Because I know you mentioned trying to create hope and trying to create belief. But the other end of that in my mind was thinking about, how often people are like, oh, I see this is wrong. You need to fix that. And what do you think the cost of that is?
Oh, God, extraordinary. I think it's huge. When I got into this work, I got into it for that reason. My mission initially, it's tweaked a little bit, but was to change or improve the medical model. Because I want to change the way the medical community deals with people living with chronic medical conditions. Because I don't really care if it's ADHD or celiac disease or PK, doesn't matter what the diabetes, doesn't matter what the condition is we're living with. we can see ourselves as broken or we can see ourselves as well or whole. And, you know, I was a person who, when I was having my kids, I used midwives. And when you use a midwife and you're having a baby, you go in and you check your own stats and you weigh yourself and you do all this stuff yourself, and then you tell the provider, so that you're collaboratively working with the provider from a health perspective, a proactive, I'm monitoring and managing my pregnancy in a healthy way. You're not going in and having the doctor say, well, this is wrong and you did, you know, like there's a very distinct difference there. And so when I got into parenting and I had kids with these complex issues, and then I was diagnosed, my husband was diagnosed, it just wasn't, feeling broken felt like shit, right? And you can't the Humpty Dumpty thing, if it's all broken, why bother, right? But the goal here, I believe, so this is, I think, why I do so much work around neurodiversity and neuro-informed coaching, which is what I have come to call it, and why I think neuro-informed coaching is an ethical mandate for all coaches. Like, this is I feel so clearly now that in order for us to meet people where they are truly, we must understand the fundamentals of neurodiversity and neuroscience and what's going on in the brain, like at the simplest level. And what's so beautiful about coaching, I think the reason we're all here is because we understand that when people feel broken, it's not exactly empowering, and it doesn't exactly make you want to, I mean, some people are going to fight back, and, you know, you're going to have some people who are uber successful because they were traumatized, because they were, you know, abused in some way. There's definitely that reactive approach. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that. Sometimes you have people who are better parents because I'm not going to parent like that. Although there's that tendency to kind of maybe go over-calibrate too far in the other direction. But I think when people see, this goes back to what we were saying earlier about capacity, seeing our capacity. It's not enough to see our competence. When we can see our capacity, we can move towards it. When we feel like we're broken, we get stuck. And I think my kids were definitely stuck. And I was trying to fix them for the first 10 years, and it wasn't good for them, and it wasn't good for me, and maybe even longer than 10 years. Because I think even after I started coaching, it took me a few years to really integrate and understand. But when we can look at people and say, there is nothing broken here. There's nothing broken. Here's where you are. Where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? What are the steps to get there? And we allow, I do believe to some extent, especially in the world of neurodiversity, that we have to set realistic expectations. I'm not saying no expectations, there's no possibility, and sometimes coaching gets a little woo-woo around possibility. And so in the neuro space, I do believe that we want to set incremental expectations because growth is incremental. And if you know, parents will come to me and I'll say, what do you really want? They're like, I don't want them to have this. Well, that's not an option, right? This kid is wired this way. This kid has autism. This kid has ADHD. They may be able to learn to manage it so well you won't even notice it, but it's not going away, actually. This is what you're dealing with. If you're dealing with diabetes, whatever it is, this is where you are. Given where you are, how do you want to grow and change from here? And we can make extraordinary strides when we focus on the next step and the next step and the next step while still holding that larger vision. So, I mean, your question is, what's the damage that can be done, I think, when we hold people as broken? And I think it's the damage is that people get really stuck and locked and disempowered. And when we hold people as whole and capable, it unlocks possibility, whatever that is, at whatever pace is appropriate for that person's journey. Because we're all on a journey, and some people are going to do extraordinary things, and some people are going to live their life, and they're both beautiful, right? What I think we all want for them is to live their life from a sense of agency, and not from a sense of feeling stuck or held down or incapable. Nobody wants to feel incapable.
No.
I'm imagining how much it can damage the relationship between the person that holds the thoughts of you're broken and like parent-child, right? As a parent, if you think your child is broken, how much is that damaging the relationship between you? It's wild.
I mean, that is ultimately why I do what I do, because I did see it that way, and it was damaging to my kid, and I kind of have to deal with that for the rest of my life, because there is residual damage and trauma from how I was being with them, because I was so attached to their success. I thought I was wanting for them, but what I was wanting from them was performance in a world with the world's expectations that wasn't good for them or for me, for any of us. But that's really, it's nuanced, right? It's so hard, because parents really think they're wanting for their kids, no matter what. Every parent, I think, really thinks that whatever they're doing for their kids for their own good, right? Even the most stern, strict, I'm doing it for their own good. And yeah, and I think kids are smarter than that. Right? They see through it. They feel the energy very often. One of the big shifts from a parenting lens, I think, is this really about them, or is this about me? Am I asking them to calm me down by performing, behaving, whatever, so that my anxiety is quelled or my anger is managed or whatever it is? The hardest thing about parenting is to deal with my stuff over here, so that when I'm with my kid, I can be present to them and their needs. And that's not coddling, and that's not, what does they call it, kind parenting or whatever, gentle parenting. It's not about that. It's about getting myself out of the way so I can really be present to parent them, whether that's the boundaries they need or the expectations, helping them set their own expectations, whatever it is, that I can be there with them to help them grow up, instead of needing them to grow in a certain way to make me okay.
Ooh, this hits like to the heart. Oh,
it's hard.
It's the
I don't want
hardest
to do that.
thing. It is the hardest thing, parenting. I've never done anything remotely as difficult. And then if you've got the neurospiciness in the equation, and then other life circumstances, it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And what's stunning to me is how little preparation and training this world offers for people who want to procreate, right? Or want to become parents. It's like,
license to go fishing.
What's that?
You have to have a license to go fishing.
You have a license to go fishing. It's unbelievable. What do we have trainings for? Like a million other things. But anybody can just go and start this human life and not know that they're supposed to like shepherd them and protect them and also work on their own. We have to learn how to get out of our own way. How can you parent effectively without it?
Well, and I got to tell you, I've had a parenting focused organization for 15 years. And it is shocking to me and how hard it is for parents to make the decision to get help for themselves. Even when they're struggling, even when their kids are struggling, how much shame and embarrassment and failure and is wrapped around the axle. I have doctors who won't refer parents for parent training, which is recommended treatment for their kids, because they don't want to embarrass the parents because it might hurt their feelings. Like, there is so much wrapped up in it. And yeah, like, I could go on. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me. We are a sustainable organization, right? There is no reason in the world that we shouldn't be hitting millions of parents instead of the hundreds of thousands or whatever we hit. Parents want it all. They want it easy. They want it free, and they don't want to need it. And that makes it really hard to get the support we really need, because guess what? Parenting, especially today, raising kids in the world of technology with the exposure that they have to the whole world, it's complicated, really complicated. And we need help. I mean, we run groups for parents of different age kids, and we run groups for parents of young adults, 18 to 40. And Diane and I each still run a group. Why? Because we still need it. I'm still in here doing the work. I haven't figured this all out because now my kids are, 24, 28, and 30. So it's a whole new realm of parenting that I get to play with. And it's really hard for people to ask for and accept help. We do a whole teaching thing around all the reasons why people don't ask for and accept help. And this is for kids and adults. And the adults who aren't asking for help are then frustrated that their kids won't accept help. Right? So
Amazing how much that shame will also keep parents from having the conversations necessary around important topics, sex, porn, drugs, and how much that stifles the growth because they're unwilling to have those kinds of conversations because that's taboo.
Yeah.
Right?
No, so true. In fact, about a year and a half ago, my son, who was about 23 at the time, I think, came to me and said, we were having a conversation, and he said, "Mom, there's not a kid my age who hasn't been traumatized by the internet." And I was like, "Really? Tell me more." And so we had a number of really, really serious conversations that led me to do a series of podcast interviews about porn. And I went to, got people who were doing the research. I think it was Pew or I can't remember, Common Sense Media, something. So I did somebody with the research, and then somebody who was supporting it, and somebody in addiction, and how do you talk to your kids about this? And when do you talk to your kids about it? Because nobody's talking about it. And the same thing with this summit we're doing for parents of young adults. Nobody's talking about it. And so it's even hard to find experts to interview about it because nobody's got leadership in it. There was this guy who wrote a book last year, I think, New York Times bestseller, a book on adolescents and parenting young adults. It's big, So I reach out to him for this summit. He's a psychologist. And I explained what the summit is, for parenting complex kids, neurodiverse young adults. And his response was, "Oh, I don't know anything about neurodiversity." And I'm like, wait, but you're a psychologist, right? No, I can't speak to that audience. So it's hard when you're we're in this new world. And the people who are doing the work, it takes 20 years for research to make it into practice. So those of us on the front lines doing the work now, the research to verify what we're doing is 10, 20 years away. And so the establishment of whatever the modality is way down the line. So, but what's really helping is now it's a complicated world. It's moving fast, right?
Faster and faster.
Yeah, and it's hard to keep up with for them and for us.
And I wonder if that's, maybe the evils of social media we know about, we talk about. And I wonder if that's also a benefit of social media is it democratizes information. Two sides to the coin. Could be false information, could be something informative to get people curious. I'm finding that this generation, I sound like an old person, like, well, the kids these days are a lot more aware about the idea of importance of mental health and the idea of that neurodivergence exists. Yes. It's become, the difference even 10 years ago versus today in awareness and integration and understanding that, there are actually advantages to being neurodiverse. There are like wired advantages, built-in advantages that neurodiverse folks may have that neurotypicals might not get to enjoy, right? And then employment practices, recruitment practices that have taken place just in the recent years to support that. So I think as hard as it is, this generation is almost has this a tendency to tend to itself, a self-healing mechanism. And maybe it starts with social media. And my hope is that they then go to folks who maybe have done the research or seen it or read it.
Or trying to create it.
Or trying to create it.
I think you're spot on. And, the social media piece is a whole different thing. And I think it's kind of blossomed out, and I'm hoping it will come back a little bit because I think it's untenable. And part of the problem we're facing in the world today is that we no longer have an agreed upon truth of media source stuff. Maybe the AP is the only thing we've got. When we grew up, we all watched and got our news from the same sources as our parents. So there's some agreed upon, truth of, and there was a sense that news was news. Now news is entertainment. We all get it from different sources. Kids are getting it from different sources than their parents. So their parents are no longer representing any authority at a much younger age, and they have access to information from all over the world. So there's a whole bunch of parts of this that are fraught from the social media lens that I am very concerned about, because there is a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of untruth out there. The other piece to what you're saying is how we be with information with our kids, how we have this tendency to discredit, to demonize, right? We demonize the social media. We demonize their screens or their technology. We walk around on our own phones and then we criticize them for doing the same thing, right? And we're disconnecting from them when we do that. So there's a really powerful piece about relationship that we can let these screens divide us, or we can let them unite us like we're doing right now, right? This is an extraordinary thing that we have the capacity to do right now. We're in all different places and we're talking to thousands of people, right? Like, that's cool. And so we can use this for good if we're conscious and intentional. I think this generation of kids, so I've been doing a lot more training around neuro-informed work, neuro-informed workplace, neuro-informed coaching, because I think the future is neuro-informed. And so the company, Impact is still doing parenting stuff and will continue to do that. I'm doing more work in this neuro world because I believe what you're saying is the workplace is beginning to recognize these young people are coming into the workplace. They've been diagnosed, they've been treated, they've been accommodated all of their lives, and they're going to come into the workplace expecting accommodations because that's what they need to be successful. And as we empower them to advocate for themselves instead of forcing them to use the IEP, but we empower them to say, what will it take for you to be successful? How can you present your best self? And they begin to learn how to do that. I mean, I have a 28-year-old kid who's a med student with dyslexia, ADD, and anxiety, who can self-advocate like nobody's business, right? And she's going to continue to do that when she gets into the workplace. And she's going to help create appropriate systems. And she's going to help because she's learned to do it young and she learned to do it well. And I can't wait to see what happens when she takes on the medical system because it needs it, right? So I think this generation of younger people is going to teach us how to create accommodated environments that are neuro-friendly, that are neuro-informed. I just think it's going to have to be. The night of this last election was a really rough night for me, and I kind of climbed in bed, and my kids came in at different times to check on me. And I was, kind of apologizing for the state of the world. And each of them said to me, look, Mom, it's so much better now than it was when you were our age. And what I said to them was, 30 years from now, it's abortion rights, trans rights. I'm not really worried that progress is going to happen. They can't actually stop progress. It will happen because that's the nature of it. So it will get there. It's just what happens between now and then that can be so painful. And I kind of was hoping it would happen in my lifetime, right? And so I see it. I hold the vision for it. I know that's where we're going. We will have accommodated work environments because it's going to be called for. The need will be there, the demand will be there, and we will meet the need. I just wish we could accelerate it a little bit because we really shouldn't have to wait 20 years because we now know what it is. We know what it takes. We know what's required. We know what would make a different environment. And it's just, to me, it's like frustrating that we have to go through the process of making sure they get their double-blind studies and we go through all the research to prove, but first they have to recognize it. And we're not there yet. Mm-hmm. The very beginning research on neurodiversity is only now starting to come out. There was a research that came out recently on a need for a transdiagnostic approach. What that means is instead of here's a treatment for ADD and here's a treatment for anxiety and here's a treatment for depression, what if we look at something that supports neurodiversity because most people who have one thing have multiple things, and we stop siloing it and we create a transdiagnostic approach. Guess what? Neuro-informed coaching, transdiagnostic approach. So, but getting the professional community to do research on coaching, as you know, is a little more complicated than getting them to do it on therapy. So we'll get there. It's just,
right.
Three steps forward, couple steps back.
It's amazing. It's amazing that I am stunned by you're talking about transdiagnostic approach. Right. And I refer to it as a bouquet. Like your child gets diagnoses and there's going to be petals of a flower. It's not just one, it's typically a few petals. And
I call it soup. I'm with you.
And each bouquet is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So how do you rip out a petal and say, we're going to deal with that? The rest, leave it. I don't know what to do with it. Or go to the next room. That treatment, that checklist will be for that petal. That's a whole flower. Yeah. You have to treat it as operating in harmony. One depends on the other. They're codependencies. We don't need 20 years of research to know that. Humans have existed for a long time with transdiagnostic lives.
Where I find hope in what you just said, Elaine, is I hope that there are businesses and careers and corporations out there and leaders out there who can create that space without the research, without it being required or without it being some sort of higher level thing, because we got to start somewhere. And I do believe there are people out there who exist that are able to create environments that can hold that capacity. It's just hard because you don't see them globally, and we know it like what it should be or what it could be is maybe a better way to put it. But I do find hope in that because I think the more we talk about it, the more people hear people like us talking about all of these things, they might have some consideration without considering whether or not it's required by their, the powers that be, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, so here's what I'll put out there. I couldn't agree with you more. I For the last several years, we've been doing a series of trainings on neuro-informed workplace, neuro-informed coaching. What is it to be neuro-informed? And we've identified what are the fundamental pieces of information. What education do people need in order to be able to create a neuro-informed environment, whether it's school, workplace, whatever. And we're actually going to do a training in January 2026 for coaches on neuro-informed coaching, and like we're kind of poising to do it. And I'm putting it out there because what I'm very clear about is that I'm not going to be the one to do this. Like what got me here won't get me there, and I need to find that younger person than I am who is passionate about this and can learn coaching, can learn neurodiversity, whatever, but who sees this and who wants to come take this the next step forward, because I believe you're absolutely right. There are companies out there that are hungry for this, that are looking for this. I don't care if they don't like the word DEI right now. Neuro-informed it's coming, it's moving forward, and there is a demand for it. I think what I'm struggling with is I don't have the bandwidth to do it all. And so I'm trying to find that next generation who can see it and wants to play it forward. So I'm putting it out there here so that y'all can, you and your listeners can help me find that person. So for those of you who listen, want to do this, let me know, because there is a huge need, and I believe a huge market. An enormous market. And we're seeing it in little places like Goldman Sachs has got this guy who did a series of support groups in both London and New York for Goldman Sachs members or employees who were parents of complex kids, about understanding neurodiversity. That's huge, right? We see Diversity University, right? What's his name's new adventure? Do you know who I'm talking about? Because I can't remember his name. The airplane guy.
Branson?
Branson, right? Started Diversity University, I think, Dyslexia University.
I did hear about that.
In January. So I think we're starting. I hear that Google has a neurodiversity thing going on, and I'm trying to get in touch with them. I'm in touch with them. So I think it's coming.
Absolutely.
It really is coming. We just have to ride the wave as we get there. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do this work, let me know. Because I'm definitely I'm looking for the next.
Excellent. So I'm noticing the time. Do you need to move on?
I do. I'm sorry to say I have a team meeting.
Perfect. All right. Well, then looks like a great place to wrap up then. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you very much. I'm loving the grand vision that you have for what's coming. So beautiful. Beautiful.
I appreciate y'all having me, and I really enjoyed the conversation. It was truly delightful. Thank you.
It's great to meet you. Love the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, bye-bye. Love you. Thank you for listening to That's a Great Point with Elena Doran, Michelle Albers, and Lee Smart. To find out more about how we can serve you, check out our links in the show description. Thanks for playing along.